Now, Ukraine's war is heading at a critical make-or-break point. Now, President Zelensky, once defiant against any loss of territory, has now said that he's ready for discussions on the US peace plan. But Washington is warning Kyiv to agree to the plan by Thursday or to lose all support. Now, Moscow is also doubling down, saying negotiate now or lose more territory. So what's really happening on the Ukrainian front lines and in the diplomacy behind the scenes? Our next report gets into details.
A dramatic turn in the Ukraine war has stunned world capitals. A president cornered, allies losing patience, and a battlefield tilting in favor of Moscow. The big question, has Zelensky effectively surrendered to Trump's peace plan, and will Putin accept it? The trigger was brutal. Washington says the US wants Ukraine to sign a framework agreement by next Thursday, or face an immediate cut in intelligence sharing and weapon supplies. The message is clear: sign or fight alone, something Ukraine can't do. At the same time, Russian forces claim to have taken Kupiansk, a strategic town in the northeast. Moscow is celebrating, Kyiv in denial. The tide is changing rapidly in favor of Putin. Zelensky is clinging on to hope.
A dignified peace, so that the conditions are with respect for our independence, our sovereignty, and the dignity of the Ukrainian people. And we must ensure these very conditions.
Europe, on the other hand, is shocked on being left out again from the most crucial discussion. It is urging Trump to keep it on board.
As you said yesterday, a 28-point plan was made public. We will discuss the situation both with European leaders and with leaders here in the sidelines of the G20. I will also reach out to President Zelensky to discuss the matter.
As Washington issues a 6-day deadline, Moscow's blunt warning: negotiate now or lose more territory. Kremlin insiders say that Putin believes Ukraine is at its weakest point since the war began, and the battlefield maps seem to agree. Under Trump's proposed deal, Russia would be welcomed back into the G7. Ukraine would be blocked from hosting NATO troops and forced to reduce its military by 50%. In exchange, Kyiv would receive a NATO-style security guarantee, a promise Washington says will act as a deterrent, not an invitation for escalation. European officials have slammed the plan as nothing short of surrender. But the world is waiting for one final piece. Will Putin take the deal or push harder while Ukraine struggles? Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Maximilian Hess, who is a Central Asia Fellow at the FPRI and also the author of Economic War, Ukraine, the Global Conflict Between Russia and the West. Mr. Hess, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, what do you make of this, effectively what is an ultimatum put out by the United States of America telling Ukraine to put in on paper on this 28-point peace plan that's been floated by the Trump administration? Is this effectively a surrender by the West, that is the United States of America, to Russia's demands?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. What I think this is once again going around the circle of fighting within the Trump administration, where Donald Trump himself is clearly seeking to end U.S. involvement in this on terms that he thinks are advantageous to him personally and his own interests. That being said, I don't think that this latest demand and ultimatum is necessarily any different from the reports that we saw back in April or that we saw in August at the time of the Putin-Trump summit in Alaska again. The reasons for that are twofold. One, this proposal includes a number of things that violate both Ukraine and Europe's red lines. Europe is now far and away the primary funder of the Ukrainian defense effort and the one that has the potential to unlock more funding with the frozen assets of Russia's that sit primarily in Europe, over 220 billion of the estimated 300 billion in Belgium alone. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, is that Russia itself is not necessarily willing to agree to these terms. It is true that there have been notable battlefield losses for the Ukrainian side in recent weeks, and Putin will look to press his advantage.
All right, interesting. Now, the Russians say that they haven't officially received this draft proposal, and what is being read about this proposal is all coming through leaks that have happened within the United States. But one of the proposals states that the western Donbas region that is still under the control of the Ukrainians will have to be ceded by the Ukrainians, give up possession of it. Although Ukraine will continue to remain legally the owner of eastern Donbas, the Russians will have possession, physical possession of that land, and will pay cash as a lease to the Ukrainians. Leave aside what Ukrainians have to say about this. In your assessment, how do you think Vladimir Putin would be reacting to a deal that effectively looks like it's been floated by a real estate agent?
Well, I think it's actually most likely that this deal has been floated by Kirill Dmitriev, a Putin advisor and the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, and he's the most likely source of the leaks. This plays into a lot of infighting within the Kremlin itself about who gets to take credit for it and who gets to blame whom for some of the challenges and the mass personnel losses that the Kremlin has faced throughout these gains that it has achieved recently. I'm not sure, however, that on that issue, Putin is willing to really negotiate. He hasn't been willing to before, and he wants full legal recognition of his occupation and annexation of all of these regions. Putin would, of course, not agree to give up his formal claim to the region, I think, under any scenario.
Right.
And having him then agree to it be a demilitarized zone would be something he would see as infringing on Russia's sovereignty.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Maximilian Hess, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.